Rain glazed the asphalt outside the downtown mall, turning the parking lot into a mirror of flashing sirens. Dr. Maya Langston stood still, hands raised, coat drenched, designer handbag hanging open at her side. Around her, people watched from behind their phones. "Ma'am, don't move," Officer Briggs barked, his voice slicing through the air. He was young, pale-faced, jaw tight with self-importance. His hand stayed on the butt of his gun, even though Maya hadn't so much as flinched. She tried to steady her voice. "Officer, I'm telling you, that's my car. I can prove it." "The keys—" "Lady," he snapped, stepping closer. "You people always have a story." The words hit harder than the rain. "You people," someone gasped nearby. Another whispered, "Is he serious?" But no one stepped forward. Not one. Maya's pulse roared in her ears. She saw her reflection in his mirrored sunglasses, her wet curls clinging to her face, her silk blouse smeared with grime. She thought of her board meeting in 2 hours, the contract worth billions, the lives depending on her company's success. He yanked her bag open, spilling its contents onto the ground, a black leather planner, her phone, a silver business card case engraved Langston Global Industries. He didn't even look down. "Turn around," she froze. "Officer, you're making a mistake." He leaned in, voice low and poisonous. "Mistake? The only mistake would be letting you walk away." The rain swallowed her reply. The handcuffs snapped shut, metallic and final. From across the lot, a security camera blinked red, recording everything. And Maya knew in that moment, this wasn't an arrest. It was the beginning of a war. Rain slicked the pavement, muting the city into a gray blur. Maya Langston's heels clicked a slow rhythm as she crossed the parking lot, scrolling through last-minute board notes. She barely noticed the flashing lights until they reflected off her phone screen. Red, blue, red again. "Ma'am, step away from the vehicle." The shout came sharp and unfamiliar. She looked up. A police cruiser had pulled diagonally behind her black Tesla. Officer Briggs, mid-30s, cropped hair, eyes that never softened, already had his hand hovering near his holster. Maya blinked, confused. "Excuse me?" I said step away. His tone implied danger where there was none. "I'm sorry, is something wrong?" "That's my car." Briggs approached, scanning the Tesla. "We got a report about a stolen vehicle matching this description. You have ID?" She opened her bag slowly. "Of course." "It's hands where I can see them." She froze, the rain running cold down her fingers. "I just told you, hands." Her voice tightened. "Officer, please. I'm Dr. Maya Langston. This is my—" "Doctor, huh?" He smirked. "You a doctor or you just play one?" She exhaled, steady but furious. "I don't have time for this." "Check the plates. You'll see my name." He circled the car instead. "Plates are registered to a company, Langston Global Industries." "That's my company." "Sure it is." His tone dripped disbelief. A few bystanders slowed near the edge of the lot. Phones lifted discreetly. Briggs called into his radio. "Dispatch, possible suspect claiming corporate ownership." "Stand by." Maya clenched her jaw. "Suspect?" "I've done nothing wrong. Lady, people like you—" He stopped, but not fast enough. She caught it anyway. "People like you?" The phrase burned through her calm. "Officer, I want your badge number." "You'll get it at booking." He stepped closer. The distance between them shrank to inches. Rain drummed on his uniform. She could smell the metallic tang of wet asphalt and adrenaline. "Turn around," he ordered. "You're making a mistake." "You resisting?" She looked at him, really looked. The certainty in his posture, the satisfaction in his control. And she understood. This wasn't about the car. It never was. Briggs grabbed her wrists and snapped the cuffs tight. She winced. "Officer, stop!" A woman's voice called out from the crowd. He ignored it. "You have the right to remain silent." Her planner fell open, pages bleeding ink into puddles. Inside, her name embossed in silver. Dr. Maya Langston, CEO. The camera phones caught it all. The cuffs, the rain, the humiliation. Briggs pushed her toward the car. "Guess your company'll have to wait." She met his reflection in the cruiser window. "So will yours," he frowned. "What's that supposed to mean?" But she didn't answer. As the door slammed, the sound echoed like a verdict. Through the glass, she watched the world shrink, the crowd, the lights, the gray skyline, until all that was left was her reflection in the storm outside. The siren started up again. and somewhere in the distance a camera light blinked red. The metal door slammed shut behind her. Sound became thick. The muffled hum of fluorescent lights, the rattle of keys, the low murmur of other detainees. The air smelled of bleach and damp uniforms. Maya Langston sat on the cold bench, hands folded neatly in her lap despite the ache in her wrists. Her cuff marks were still red. Across from her, a teenage boy dozed against the wall. To her left, a woman hummed under her breath, rocking slowly, eyes vacant. An officer behind the desk whispered something, then laughed. "The lady says she's a CEO," he said to his partner. "Next she'll tell us she's the president." They both laughed harder. Maya lifted her chin, face expressionless. She'd learned years ago how to survive boardrooms filled with men who saw her as an anomaly. But this was different. Here her titles meant nothing. "Hey, miss," said the boy across from her, his voice soft, uncertain. "What they bring you in for?" "Existing," she said quietly. He chuckled once, then saw she wasn't joking. "Yeah, happens," a buzzer sounded. The desk officer pointed at her. "Langston, you get one call." She stood, smoothing her soaked blouse, and walked to the phone mounted on the wall. She dialed a number by memory. "Danielle," she whispered when her assistant picked up. "Listen carefully. I've been detained. Get Mark on the line. Tell him to contact the press if I'm not out in 2 hours." "Detained? What?" The line went dead. The officer had cut it. "Time's up," he said flatly. "That wasn't a full minute. Department policy. Sit back down." Her pulse pounded, but she obeyed. She could fight later. For now, she needed information. From the desk, she caught snippets of conversation. "Briggs brought her in himself?" "Yeah, said she matched a stolen vehicle report. Guess he didn't check the database before flexing. Doesn't matter. She'll be out soon enough. No harm done, no harm done." The phrase rattled in her skull. Across the room, Officer Briggs appeared, dry now, coffee in hand. He glanced through the glass, expression unreadable. Maya stood. "Officer Briggs," she called through the bars. "When will I be processed?" He looked at her for a long second, then smiled faintly. "When I'm done with my coffee." "That's not procedure. Neither is claiming you own a tech company." "I don't claim." "I do, sure," he said, walking away. Her breath came shallow. She sat again, body rigid. The teenage boy muttered, "Don't bother. They don't listen here." The clock above the desk ticked slow. Each second felt surgical. An hour passed. Then another. Finally, a different officer entered, older, gray at the temples, voice gravelly. "Langston, come with me." She followed him down a sterile hallway lined with bulletin boards and fluorescent glare. They stopped outside an interrogation room. "Your lawyer's on the way," he said quietly. "Off the record, this shouldn't have happened." Maya met his eyes. "Then why did it?" He hesitated. "Some people see what they expect to see." The door opened. She stepped inside. A mirrored wall. A metal table. A single chair. Briggs's reflection appeared in the glass, though he stayed outside, watching. Maya sat, spine straight, eyes fixed on her reflection. No one would believe her dignity had survived, but it had, thin, trembling, intact. The door clicked. A uniform entered, clipboard in hand. "Dr. Langston," the officer said, tone suddenly cautious. "We've confirmed the registration. It appears your vehicle is, in fact, registered under your company's name." Her voice didn't waver. "I told you that 3 hours ago." He nodded, uncomfortable. "You're free to go." There was a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding? "Yes, ma'am." Maya stood slowly. "I'll see you all again." "In court." She walked past Briggs without a glance. He smirked faintly. "Didn't mean to offend, ma'am. You know how it is, just doing my job." She stopped. "No," she said, turning her head slightly. "You were doing what you thought your job allowed you to do." Their eyes locked. His smirk faltered. Outside, cameras flashed. News crews had already gathered. The video had spread. As she stepped into the cold night air, the first microphone thrust toward her, she didn't speak. She didn't have to. Her silence said everything. By dawn, the city was already talking. Every local station ran the same 30-second clip. A drenched black woman in cuffs. Her name unknown. Her voice calm while the officer's tone sliced through the rain. By noon, the caption changed. Arrested woman identified as Dr. Maya Langston, CEO of Langston Global Industries. Maya sat in her penthouse office, blinds half drawn. Her assistant, Danielle, stood at the window with her phone glowing in her hands. "It's everywhere," she said softly. "CNN, BBC, even local outlets in Europe. Hashtag justice for Maya is trending." Maya didn't respond. The bruise around her wrist had deepened to violet. "Your mother called twice," Danielle added, "and Mark's already drafting the statement." "Not yet. Maya. Not yet." She turned toward the glass wall that overlooked downtown. The skyline shimmered in morning light, the same streets where she'd been shoved into a patrol car 12 hours earlier. On the muted TV behind her, a news anchor's voice cut through. While authorities insist protocol was followed, sources confirm the officer in question, identified as Daniel Briggs, has faced 2 prior complaints involving excessive force, both dismissed internally. Maya's gaze didn't leave the window. "Of course they were," Danielle hesitated. "They're requesting an interview." "CNN wants you live tonight." Maya finally faced her. "What happens if I say nothing?" "They'll fill the silence for you." Maya's expression hardened. "Then we'll choose the silence they can't twist." At the precinct, chaos simmered under fluorescent lights. Reporters camped outside. Officers avoided eye contact. Briggs sat in the corner of the briefing room, scrolling through his phone. His name trended alongside hers. He muttered under his breath, "Unbelievable." Captain Ruiz entered, slamming a file onto the table. "Briggs, you've just turned this department into a circus." "With respect, sir." "I followed procedure." "Procedure doesn't include public humiliation of a billionaire genius." Briggs clenched his jaw. "I didn't know who she was." "Maybe that's the point." Ruiz's voice dropped low. "You didn't care who she was." A younger officer shifted nervously. "Are we suspending him?" Ruiz exhaled. "Internal affairs will handle it," Briggs scoffed. "So I get thrown under the bus because the suspect's rich?" Ruiz leaned forward. "Because she's human. And you forgot that." The room went silent. That afternoon, Maya's attorney, Mark Halpern, arrived at her office with a folder under his arm, an urgency in his stride. "They're offering a public apology," he said. "No admission of wrongdoing, but they'll issue a statement by tonight." "Apology?" Maya repeated. "They handcuffed me in front of a crowd and left me in a cell for hours. And now they want to apologize? Public pressure is high, but not enough for a lawsuit yet. We need more. Video angles, eyewitness accounts," Danielle interjected. "There's more footage circulating. Security cam from the mall." Maya turned sharply. "How?" "Anonymous leak. Someone from mall security uploaded it this morning." Mark opened his laptop. The footage played. Briggs shouting, Maya standing calm, the words "you people" cutting through the static like a blade. The crowd gasped. "Jesus Christ," Mark muttered. "That's it." "That's the case." Maya watched herself on screen, soaked, composed, silent as the cuffs snapped. The humiliation flooded back, sharp and cold. "Use it," she said. "Every frame." By evening, networks dissected every second. Pundits debated tone and context. "Maybe he didn't mean it racially," one said. "She was completely cooperative," countered another. "The problem," a third added, "isn't one officer. It's the system that protects him." Outside Langston Global's headquarters, supporters gathered with signs, "Respect is not earned by color," and "CEOs get cuffs, imagine the rest of us." Inside, Maya faced another kind of crowd, her board of directors. One gray-suited executive spoke first. "Dr. Langston, we stand with you. But we have shareholders demanding stability. We must manage optics carefully." "Optics?" Maya repeated. "A police officer publicly arrested your CEO for existing, and you're worried about optics?" "Investors don't like controversy. Neither do human beings," she said coldly. Silence followed. Then another director cleared his throat. "We believe in your leadership, Maya, but you'll need to issue a calm statement. Something that projects control." She understood what they meant. "Don't make them uncomfortable." "Control," she repeated, tasting the word. "I've been controlled enough this week." She stood, gathering her papers. "Prepare the statement if you must, but mine will be in my own voice." At the police department, Briggs sat alone in his cruiser, the engine off. His phone buzzed with messages from friends and fellow officers. "Ignore the media. You did nothing wrong. Don't apologize, and they're making it about race. Stay strong, brother." He scrolled past them all. Then came one message that made his stomach twist. A screenshot of his bank statement leaked online. His personal address, too. He slammed the phone onto the dashboard. Damn it! Outside, a reporter's microphone appeared near his window. Officer Briggs, any comment on Dr. Langston's viral video? He shoved the door open. No comment. Are you aware the mayor's calling for a review of your conduct? His silence was its own admission. Back in her penthouse, Maya stood before the mirror, adjusting the cuffs of a charcoal suit. Cameras would soon point at her again, this time by choice. Danielle handed her a folder. Media statement draft. Maya took it but didn't open it. Let them see the footage first. Then we speak. Outside, the city glowed with restless energy. Helicopters hovered above. Reporters waited below. Maya exhaled slowly. The storm had passed, but another was forming. One of headlines, politics, and perception. Her reflection stared back, poised, deliberate, unbroken. She whispered to herself, "They wanted a spectacle. Let's give them truth instead." And as the elevator doors closed behind her, she descended into a world ready to watch. And finally, to listen. The conference room inside City Hall buzzed with panic. Reporters swarmed the steps outside, their cameras aimed at the tall glass doors like predators waiting for movement. Inside, the city's top officials sat in a tight semicircle, faces drawn, eyes on the headlines flickering across the projection screen. Racist arrest sparks national outrage. Langston Global CEO. Detained without cause. Mayor's office silent as protests grow. Mayor Benton leaned back, fingers pressed against his temple. Tell me why I'm hearing about this from cable news instead of my own police chief. Chief Ruiz stood stiffly at the end of the table, voice controlled. Because it escalated faster than expected. The footage hit social media before we could assess. Assess? The mayor repeated. Your officer said you people on camera. What's there to assess? Ruiz hesitated. We're launching an internal review. Benton's tone sharpened. Translation stalling until it blows over. That won't work this time. Another aide spoke up. The public wants Briggs suspended immediately. Civil rights attorneys are circling. The governor's office already called twice. Benton turned to Ruiz. So what's the plan? Containment, Ruiz said bluntly. Issue an apology. Reassign Briggs. No admission of guilt, reassign. Benton snapped. To where, Mars? The room fell silent. Across town, Maya sat at her mother's kitchen table, steam rising from untouched tea. The house was small, quiet, lined with photographs, generations of faces that had endured. Her mother, Evelyn Langston, watched her closely. You shouldn't be here alone, baby. The cameras will find you. They already have, Maya said softly. Evelyn sighed. You think I don't know what this feels like? I was your age when the city patrol dragged your uncle from his car for a broken taillight. 30 years later, they're still doing the same damn thing. Only now it's on camera. Maya's voice broke slightly. I built everything I have to prove people like him wrong. Her mother reached across the table, firm. You built it to prove yourself right. Don't let one small man take that from you. I can't even sleep, Maya admitted. Every time I close my eyes, I hear him say it again. Evelyn squeezed her hand. Then make the world hear it too. At that same hour, Briggs sat in a closed meeting with the police union attorney. Internal Affairs will call you in tomorrow, the attorney said. You're suspended with pay until further notice. Briggs stared down at the floor. Suspended for what? I followed protocol. Protocol doesn't cover racial remarks, Briggs. I didn't mean it that way. The attorney sighed. Intent won't save you. Optics are killing us. I've got people threatening me online. My family's getting doxxed. Welcome to accountability. Briggs slammed a fist on the table. She's making this political. The attorney leaned forward. She didn't make it political, Daniel. You made it possible. That evening, the Langston Global PR team assembled in Maya's office. Dozens of screens flickered with live coverage. Danielle moved between them like a general on the battlefield. Mark, her lawyer, adjusted his tie. We're ready for your public statement. Make it direct, controlled, no anger. The goal is credibility. Maya stood near the window, her posture steel. You're asking me to be palatable again. Mark's voice softened. I'm asking you to be strategic. I've spent my whole life being strategic. It never stopped this from happening. Danielle stepped in. Maya, if we handle this right, we can make real change. Maya turned, eyes sharp. Real change doesn't come from statements. It comes from consequences, Mark nodded. Then let's start there. We'll file the civil rights claim tomorrow. File it publicly, Maya said. Danielle hesitated. That'll make it a war. It already is. Later that night, Chief Ruiz sat in his office reviewing the footage again. The video played on loop. The words, the rain, the handcuffs. He looked older under the pale light, his badge dull on his desk. He whispered to himself, "You were supposed to know better, Briggs." Then his phone buzzed. "The mayor again, Ruiz," Benton's voice boomed. "I'm issuing a citywide statement at 8 a.m. If you don't have Briggs suspended by then, I'll do it myself, understood? And Ruiz, get ahead of this, not behind it." Ruiz ended the call, staring at the paused frame of Maya's face on the screen. Calm, defiant, drenched. He leaned back, whispering under his breath, "She's not going away." In the morning, Maya's interview chair faced a wall of cameras. The studio was quiet, all movement controlled, professional. She sat tall, every word measured, every silence deliberate. The interviewer smiled politely. "Dr. Langston, many viewers have seen the footage. Some ask why you didn't simply comply." Her tone remained even. "I did comply. I followed every instruction, and I was still treated as a threat. Do you believe it was racially motivated?" Maya looked directly into the lens. "I believe it was ordinary." "That's the problem." A murmur rippled behind the cameras. The interviewer cleared his throat. "Ordinary?" "Yes," she said. "Because this isn't just about one officer. It's about a system that assumes guilt before knowing a name." When the segment ended, the producer whispered to the anchor, "That clip's going viral before dinner." Back at City Hall, Benton watched the broadcast from his desk. "She just turned the entire narrative," he said. Ruiz nodded grimly. "She didn't even raise her voice." "That's why it works." Ruiz hesitated. "The department's losing credibility, fast." "Then you know what you have to do." Ruiz stood. "Effective immediately, Briggs is suspended without pay." "Good," Benton said. "Now call legal. This city's not paying for one man's arrogance." That night, Maya scrolled through messages. Support from activists, colleagues, even competitors. Yet every compliment carried weight. Every word of sympathy felt hollow. She turned off her phone and walked to the balcony. The city below was loud with protest chants, camera flashes, and car horns. Danielle joined her quietly. "You did it," she said. "You turned it around." Maya shook her head. "No, I reminded them what they've been ignoring." She looked over the railing, the crowd, the signs, the raw noise of resistance. "This isn't victory," she murmured. "It's exposure." The truth just came up for air, and somewhere below in the echoing chant of her name she heard not celebration, but warning. The studio lights were relentless. Hot clinical white. Maya sat center stage on the primetime set of Global Focus Live, a program known for its balanced debates. Across from her sat host Alan Rourke, polite smile, practiced neutrality, the kind of journalist who thought civility could cure injustice. He shuffled his notes. "Dr. Langston, thank you for joining us. You've become the face of what some are calling a modern civil rights movement. How does that feel?" Maya's voice was steady. "It feels unearned. The system that humiliated me exists because it humiliates countless others who'll never sit in this chair." Rourke smiled thinly. "Of course. But you're in a unique position, a billionaire, a public figure. Some say this incident, while regrettable, was an anomaly." Maya leaned forward, eyes narrowing. "An anomaly requires rarity. What happened to me is routine. It's only news because of my tax bracket," the audience murmured. The sound engineer gestured frantically to the host. Rourke pressed on. "Officer Briggs maintains he followed procedure." His supporters argued that the media's portrayal of him as a racist cop is unfair. "Unfair?" she repeated. "Unfair is when you're judged before you speak, when your safety depends on someone's bias, when an officer's word outweighs your dignity." Rourke hesitated. "Do you forgive him?" Her silence lingered. The lights hummed. Then, "Forgiveness isn't a shield against consequence." The control room went quiet. After the show, Maya walked off stage, the applause thin and hesitant. Her lawyer, Mark, met her with a nod. "That was perfect. You hit every note. I wasn't playing music," she said. Danielle hurried up with her phone. "The clip's already online." 500,000 views in 20 minutes, Maya barely looked. Let them watch. She stepped outside into the night air, the cameras still trailing her. Flashbulbs burst like miniature explosions. A reporter shouted, "Dr. Langston, do you plan to press criminal charges?" She didn't break stride. Ask me when justice becomes an option. Meanwhile, inside a dim pub on the city's west side, Briggs sat at a corner booth surrounded by sympathetic faces. The TV above the bar replayed the interview. His friends shook their heads. "This is a setup," one said. "They're turning you into the villain." Briggs stared at the screen, jaw clenched. "They already did." A woman from the next booth leaned over. "Maybe you should apologize," she said gently. "Just to calm things down," he glared. "For what? Doing my job?" The bar fell silent. The bartender turned up the volume just as Maya's recorded voice filled the room. "Forgiveness isn't a shield against consequence." Briggs looked away. "She's enjoying this. Or surviving it," someone muttered. At Langston Global Headquarters the next morning, the boardroom buzzed with energy. The public had shifted. Investors now praised Maya's composure. Analysts called her a symbol of grace under fire. Stock prices climbed, but Maya didn't celebrate. She scrolled through her emails, hundreds of testimonials from strangers, victims of profiling, workplace racism, routine stops that went wrong. Each one raw, detailed pleading. Danielle entered with coffee. "You've got Good Morning America and BBC requesting interviews. Also a call from the governor's office." Maya closed the laptop. "No more interviews. What?" "You're leading this story. I'm not a story. I'm evidence." Danielle hesitated. "So what now?" "We build something that lasts longer than outrage." Across town, Chief Ruiz held a tense press conference. Cameras crowded the podium as he read from a prepared statement. Effective immediately, Officer Daniel Briggs is suspended without pay pending full investigation. The department expresses its regret for the distress caused to Dr. Langston and reaffirms its commitment to impartial policing. Reporters fired questions. Will the department issue a public apology? Was this racially motivated? Why were prior complaints ignored? Ruiz kept his composure. All findings will be reviewed by the Civilian Oversight Board. But the crowd wasn't satisfied. One journalist yelled, "Chief, are you protecting the officer or the institution?" Ruiz paused, eyes scanning the crowd. Both need accountability. One doesn't excuse the other. The flashbulbs erupted again. By afternoon, Maya's office had become a command center for legal and PR teams. Mark stood before a digital map showing nationwide protests. "It's spreading," he said. "Seattle, Chicago, D.C., even abroad." Maya watched silently. Danielle whispered, "This could reshape everything. Police reform. Corporate responsibility. Or it could burn out like every other headline." Maya interrupted. "If we don't act," Mark nodded. "Then we act. The civil suit is ready. We'll file tomorrow." Maya exhaled. "Then tomorrow begins something bigger than me." That night, she found herself unable to sleep. The apartment was silent except for the city's heartbeat beyond the glass. She stood before the window. The same skyline that once symbolized her success now looked fragile. Artificial light over old wounds. Her phone buzzed. A voicemail from an unknown number. A man's voice, tense, remorseful. "Dr. Langston, this is Officer Briggs. I just wanted to say, it wasn't supposed to go that way. You didn't deserve it." A pause. "But you'll ruin my life for one mistake. Is that justice?" She listened twice, the second time without emotion. Then she deleted it. Justice wasn't revenge. Justice was truth that refused to fade. She turned back toward her desk. The city still burning with noise outside. On her tablet, the words of tomorrow's press release blinked on screen. Langston Global files civil rights. Lawsuit against Metropolitan Police Department. Maya whispered, "Now we begin." And outside thunder rolled, not from weather, but from the crowd gathering again, louder than before, chanting her name as if it belonged to all of them. The city woke to sirens, not of emergencies, but of news vans crowding police headquarters. Every channel blared the same headline. Langston Global files civil rights lawsuit against MPD. Inside the marble lobby, Chief Ruiz faced his officers. The room was split. Some whispered sympathy for Maya. Others folded their arms in defiance. The air thickened with resentment. Ruiz spoke quietly. "No one speaks to the press without clearance. Not one word. We handle this internally. Briggs sat at the back, his uniform stripped of badge and nameplate. He muttered under his breath, "She's trying to destroy me." Ruiz's gaze cut toward him. "You destroyed yourself the moment you thought power meant immunity," murmurs rippled. Briggs rose. "With respect, Chief, I did my job. The world's twisting it," Ruiz didn't flinch. "Then let the truth survive the twisting." At Langston Global, Maya met her legal team. Mark laid out the strategy. "We're pursuing damages under Section 1983, violation of constitutional rights under color of law. That means the department itself stands trial, not just Briggs." Maya scanned the paperwork. "We're not just suing for money. We're setting precedent." "Exactly," Mark said. "They'll try to bury it under bureaucracy. Delay tactics. Public sympathy for the man in uniform. But we've got video evidence, audio transcripts, witness statements. They can't erase the record." Danielle added, "Media coverage is exploding. Hashtags, op-eds, even corporate endorsements. You've become the symbol of accountability." Maya looked up. "Symbols don't bleed. People do." The mayor held a televised press conference that afternoon, flanked by the police chief and legal counsel. "We recognize the pain caused by this incident," he began. "However, we urge the public to remember our city's long-standing trust in law enforcement. Officer Briggs, like every citizen, deserves due process." A reporter shouted, "Madam Mayor, will you apologize to Dr. Langston?" She smiled tightly. "We regret that a misunderstanding has escalated to this level. But litigation is not the path to healing." A different reporter cut in. "Dr. Langston's lawsuit alleges systemic racism within your administration. Will there be an independent review?" "An internal review," the mayor corrected. "We will handle this responsibly." Maya watched from her office screen, expression unmoved. "They're choosing containment over truth," Mark replied. "It's politics. They'll protect the badge before they protect the citizen." That evening, Ruiz entered his office to find Briggs waiting. The suspended officer looked worn, his eyes bloodshot, his posture rigid. "Chief," he said, "I can't walk outside without cameras. My wife's getting death threats. My kids, they had to move schools." Ruiz folded his hands. "Actions have echoes, Daniel. I didn't mean you meant to remind her who had control. That's what your report said. Non-compliant, suspicious, possible threat. You turned a CEO into a suspect because of what? A silhouette in a luxury car?" Briggs's voice cracked. "You think I'm racist?" Ruiz sighed. "You're a symptom. This department made you believe authority equals virtue. That's the disease." Briggs slammed his fist on the desk. "I won't be your scapegoat." Ruiz's tone hardened. "You already are. The city divided overnight. On one side, protesters with signs reading "Power doesn't excuse prejudice." On the other, counter-protesters waving flags chanting "Back the blue." Helicopters thudded overhead. News anchors narrated the chaos as though it were sport. Maya appeared on the courthouse steps beside Mark. Cameras clicked. She spoke into the microphones. "This case isn't about revenge. It's about recognition that what happened to me happens to thousands unseen. I stand for those without the platform to speak." Reporters shouted over one another. "Do you believe the department's racist? Are you targeting Officer Briggs personally? Do you plan to settle?" Maya answered none of them. She turned and entered the courthouse, leaving the noise behind. Inside, the legal process began. Motions filed, statements sworn, footage replayed. In the sterile quiet of litigation, emotion had to wear a suit. Mark whispered to her, "They filed a motion to dismiss, claiming your arrest was within reasonable grounds." Maya's jaw tightened. Reasonable. That word has never protected us. That night, a televised interview aired. Not with Maya, but with Briggs. He sat before a sympathetic reporter, tie slightly crooked, expression rehearsed. "I made a judgment call," he said. "Dr. Langston didn't comply. I didn't know who she was. I treated her like any other citizen." The interviewer nodded. "Some say you're being targeted for political reasons." Briggs swallowed. "That's how it feels. I'm not perfect, but I'm not a monster. I've served for 15 years. One mistake shouldn't erase that." Maya watched from her penthouse, the city glittering behind her reflection. His words were familiar. The language of self-preservation disguised as remorse. She turned off the TV. "He's learned nothing," she murmured. Danielle, seated nearby, whispered, "Maybe he will, when the truth's under oath." 2 days later, an anonymous email arrived at Maya's office. No subject line. One attachment. A video file. She clicked play. The footage, grainy and unedited, showed the night of the arrest, round, but this time from a different angle. A bystander's phone captured everything. The aggression, the tone, the moment Briggs smirked after handcuffing her. And one line, never heard before. "You people think money makes you safe." Maya froze. Mark leaned over her shoulder. "That's the missing piece." "He lied under oath," Danielle whispered. "Who sent it?" The sender's ID was hidden. Only a single message at the end of the email. "Truth doesn't need a name." Maya stared at the screen. Heartbeat steady. The tides had turned. The department's denial had just become its undoing. The courthouse was packed before dawn. Reporters lined the steps, microphones raised like weapons. Banners hung over barricades. Justice for Maya. End qualified immunity. No one above the law. Inside, the air was colder, sterile. The seal of the state gleamed over the judge's bench, its motto, Fiat Justitia Ruat Caelum. Let justice be done though the heavens fall. Maya sat beside her attorney, Mark, her face unreadable. Across the aisle, Officer Daniel Briggs straightened his tie. The color drained from his knuckles as he gripped the table. The judge entered. Court is now in session. The prosecution began by playing the video, the original footage now viral worldwide. Gasps rippled through the audience as the scene replayed in brutal clarity. The stop, the accusations, the arrest. Then Mark stood. "Your Honor, we have newly submitted evidence, Exhibit B, filmed by an unidentified witness." The courtroom screens lit up again. The second video began. Maya didn't watch. She'd memorized it. But the crowd reacted as if seeing violence hidden in plain sight. The smirk, the tone, the sentence that stripped all pretense away. "You people think money makes you safe." Briggs's attorney rose. "Objection, Your Honor. We cannot verify the source or integrity of this footage." Mark countered instantly. "The metadata matches the date, location, and timestamp of the arrest. Authenticity confirmed by digital forensics." The judge nodded. "Objection overruled." A still image froze on the screen, Briggs's face mid-sneer. The silence that followed was heavier than any verdict. When cross-examination began, Briggs's voice trembled. Mark approached the stand. "Officer Briggs, you testified that Dr. Langston's arrest followed standard procedure, that your actions were free of bias, correct?" "Yes," Mark gestured toward the screen. "Then explain this." Briggs looked away. "I was under stress. The situation, Mark interrupted, was a black woman in a luxury car." Briggs's lawyer objected again. "Speculation. Sustained," the judge said. Mark pressed on, quieter. "Did you know who she was?" "No. Would it have mattered if you did?" Briggs hesitated. I can't say." Mark leaned closer. "That hesitation is the point." Outside the courtroom, the public's hunger for updates turned rabid. Commentators debated everything. The tone of Maya's voice, the inflection in Briggs's apology, the optics of power and race. One pundit declared, "This trial isn't about one arrest. It's about who America chooses to believe." When Maya took the stand, the courtroom shifted. Cameras clicked, pens scratched. Mark's questions were brief. "Dr. Langston, tell the court how that night began." She inhaled slowly. "I left a charity event. I was tired but calm. Then flashing lights. Then suspicion. Then humiliation." Her voice stayed even, but the air quivered. "He treated me like a threat before he saw a person. I've spent my life building things and companies, opportunities, but that night none of it mattered." Mark nodded. "And what do you seek here?" "Accountability, not revenge. Accountability changes behavior. Revenge only repeats pain." Briggs couldn't meet her gaze. During recess, he sat alone in the hallway. Reporters snapped photos, but no one spoke to him. His lawyer whispered, "We can still settle." "Admit error, agree to suspension." Briggs shook his head. "If I admit guilt, I lose everything." His lawyer sighed. "You already did." Closing arguments began 2 days later. Mark stood before the jury. "This case is about a system that teaches suspicion before fairness. Officer Briggs acted as trained. That's the problem. A uniform should protect the public, not the prejudice of its wearer. He paused, letting silence settle. Dr. Langston didn't ask for power. She earned it. What she demands now is what every citizen deserves: equality before the law. Briggs's defense was thin, procedural. My client acted within protocol. There was confusion. No explicit malice. Misjudgment, perhaps, but not discrimination. The jury watched him without expression. When the judge dismissed them for deliberation, tension filled the room like smoke. Hours passed. Evening shadows stretched across the courthouse floor. Finally, the door opened. The jury foreman stood. In the matter of Langston versus Metropolitan Police Department, we find the defendant liable for violation of civil rights under color of law. A collective gasp, followed by murmurs that rippled through every seat. The judge continued. The department is ordered to issue a public apology, pay restitution, and initiate federal oversight for systemic reform. Officer Briggs, termination effective immediately. Your record will reflect misconduct and racial bias. Briggs closed his eyes. His wife, seated behind him, began to cry. Maya didn't smile. She simply exhaled, the sound too soft for cameras to catch. Outside, the courthouse steps became a sea of people. Chants rose into the night. Justice, not silence. No more names. No more excuses. Microphones swarmed her again, but she said only one line before walking away. Justice isn't victory. It's repair. Her words echoed through the crowd. Quoted. Reposted. Etched into signs within hours. That night, she stood on her balcony, city lights flickering below. The storm had passed, but the air still trembled with aftermath. Mark joined her, tired but relieved. It's done. You changed everything. She didn't turn. No, the system just showed its cracks. Change comes when they stop needing someone like me to prove it. He nodded. Then what now? Now, she said, we build. Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. You don't know me. I filmed that video. I was scared to share it before. Watching you fight gave me courage. Maya read it twice, then locked the screen. Courage was contagious. She looked out over the city, a mosaic of broken glass and possibility. And though the world still leaned heavy on its injustices, that night it tilted slightly toward the light. Rain fell over the city like a slow confession. Every drop caught the neon glare of headlines still burning across screens. Langston wins landmark civil rights case. Police department under federal oversight. Officer Briggs dismissed, but victory didn't sound like thunder. It sounded like exhaustion. Maya Langston sat alone in her penthouse office, the glass walls fogged with the heat of the storm outside. On the table lay the court's final judgment, the weight of hundreds of pages reduced to a single truth. They could no longer deny what they'd done. Her phone buzzed again and again. Interview requests, invitations, endorsements. She ignored them all. Justice, she realized, didn't arrive with applause. It arrived with silence after everyone else had gone home. Across town, Briggs stood in his empty locker room. His badge, once his armor, now his shame, lay on the bench beside him. The locker door still bore his nameplate. He ran a thumb over the letters until the paint began to peel. The silence was merciless. A fellow officer entered quietly, avoiding eye contact. They're cleaning out your desk, he said. Chief said you could keep your commendation medals. Briggs let out a bitter laugh. Medals for what? For serving a system that served itself? The man didn't answer. He left, closing the door behind him. Briggs sank to the bench, head in his hands. Outside, the rain tapped the windows like a verdict he couldn't escape. 2 days later, Maya walked into the Langston Foundation's press hall. Cameras waited, but this time she'd called them. Mark stood off stage, whispering last-minute notes. Your speech is historic. Just read what's on the teleprompter. I won't, she said quietly. History doesn't need scripting. She stepped to the podium. Flashes exploded, blinding, relentless. This case was never just about me, she began. It was about how power justifies its own cruelty, and how silence becomes a language of consent. But silence breaks, and if you let it, the crowd was still. Even the clicking stopped. The court gave us a ruling. Now it's time to build something beyond punishment. The Langston Foundation will allocate $10 million to launch the Reform Initiative, an independent watchdog for police accountability. It will exist outside politics, outside fear. Applause thundered, but she didn't pause for it. Justice isn't a finish line. It's maintenance. Daily, deliberate, unfinished. For a moment, she let her eyes scan the crowd. Faces she didn't know, holding up phones to capture her, to consume her victory. She wondered how many of them would still care next month. Later that night, Chief Ruiz found Briggs waiting outside his office. "Came to return this," Briggs said, handing him a folded letter. "My resignation. I figured suspension was just a slow death." Ruiz nodded slowly. "It's the first right decision you've made in a while." Briggs looked hollow. "You think they'll remember me as a monster?" Ruiz studied him. "That depends on whether you stay one." Briggs's eyes met his for the first time. Something flickered. Not redemption, but recognition. "And you? You built this system. You trained me." Ruiz didn't deny it. "Then maybe we both have debts to pay." Briggs turned to leave. "Debts don't scare me. Obscurity does." "Then live differently," Ruiz said. "That's the only way you'll matter again." Briggs didn't respond. He walked out into the rain, no badge, no applause, no one watching. Weeks passed. The protests quieted, but not completely. The city still hummed with change. Slow, reluctant, but real. Langston Global's headquarters transformed into a command hub for reform. Teams drafted policy proposals, coordinated with lawmakers, trained community advocates. One evening, Danielle burst into Maya's office with an envelope. "You'll want to see this." Inside was a handwritten note. "Dr. Langston, I was on the jury. We saw your strength, but what stayed with us wasn't your pain, it was your composure. That's what convicted them. Thank you for holding the line." Maya folded the letter carefully, setting it beside her desk. Her gaze drifted to the window again. The skyline glimmered, taller, colder, and somehow still the same. At dawn, she drove without a destination. The city was quiet for once, streets still slick with last night's rain. She passed the spot where it all began, the intersection where red and blue lights had once trapped her like prey. She parked and stepped out. No cameras this time, just wind. The air smelled of wet asphalt and possibility. She whispered to no one, "You don't get to define me twice." And then she smiled, not triumphant, but alive. Meanwhile, in a small apartment far from the city center, Briggs watched her latest speech on TV. Her voice filled the room, calm, unwavering. "Forgiveness without accountability is permission, and I'm done granting permission." He muted the screen, sat in the dark, and listened to the rain again. For the first time, it didn't sound like judgment. It sounded like something breaking open. He reached for a pen and began to write. Not to her, not to the press, but to himself. "I believed the badge protected me. It didn't, it blinded me." He paused, then continued. "Maybe this is where justice starts, with confession." Back at Langston Global, Maya ended her day walking through the Foundation's new hall. Portraits of activists, lawyers, and nameless citizens lining the walls. At the end of the corridor, an empty frame waited, inscribed only with words, for those who refused to stay silent. Danielle caught up to her. "We're finalizing the names for the first reform board. They want you as chair." Maya looked at the empty frame. "No, let it belong to someone who still needs the microphone." She walked away, her silhouette framed against the rising sun. The city kept breathing, imperfect but awake. A billboard downtown showed her quote in bold white letters, "Justice isn't victory, it's repair." Below it, smaller text read, "The Langston Foundation, building tomorrow's accountability." In the quiet of her apartment that night, Maya sat by the window with a cup of tea. Outside, the rain had stopped. The streets reflected the lights like glass veins, fragile, bright, alive. She whispered into the stillness, "Maybe that's enough." And for the first time since that night, it was.